God is great.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before this House is invited to accept this unoriginally titled fiction of a budget that claims to put the Guyanese people first, let me first deal with a more basic inquiry made by the Honorable Minister of Finance himself. But before I do that, Mr. Speaker, let me thank those diligent public servants who slaved to ensure that those fictional numbers came before us so that we can be able to identify those many discrepancies by this government. But let me say first, Mr. Speaker, as a reminder, why Mr. Granger and Harman and even Mr. Norton allow me to reintroduce myself. My name, Mr. Speaker, is Kuice Sharm Solomon, a proud descendant from the village of Victoria, not gifted by the empires, but purchased by formerly enslaved Africans from the colonial masters, who still have their names, my surname, four of them to be exact, etched in the records of that transaction. A reminder that long before modern Guyana, we stood as ownership, sacrificed with responsibility to build this nation. My parents took that drive to Region 10, Mr. Speaker, and made their contribution of building one of the most beautiful regions in this country on the bauxite, blood, sweat, and tears. But let me just say this, Mr. Speaker, that spirit still lives on in me. So, Mr. Speaker, while the question was asked by the minister why I was not given a seat by Mr. Granger and Harman, let me remind him and this government that I received more than a seat. I got a chair to sit opposite that said minister and the Ramatar government to demand that what was taken unjustly from the people remain in the budget, that today it can still find itself in this budget. That is what I did with that chair, Mr. Speaker. That is what we did. But let me just say, outside of reminding this minister what that chair allowed me to do, Mr. Speaker, that today we are benefiting in Region 10 from that. Mr. Norton said to me to come here to ensure that we hold you all accountable. So Mr. Norton played his part as much as Mr. Granger and Mr. Harman. But let me just say that it was ensuring that Article 13, which you, Mr. Speaker, would know that this government have no responsibility to respect the rights of citizens to be involved in the decision-making process that impacts their lives. So let me just say this, Mr. Speaker. As much as we hear of all the brilliance, and I respect the brilliance of the minister, enough numbers to put together isn't easy. So that mathematical genius of this minister is not to question it, it is to question the integrity of what he does with that mathematics. So let me remind this minister, after years of expanding budgets, record oil revenues, glowing press releases, Guyana today faces this reality. Mr. Speaker, 58% of the population lives in poverty and surviving on almost $1,200 a day. Let me say this to you, Mr. Speaker. 38% of this population lives in abject poverty and exists on almost $650 a day. That is the brilliant maths. But let me remind our brilliant mathematician that these figures are not the opposition propaganda. They are the acknowledgement of the Inter-American Development Bank, the very institution that this minister proudly referred to on the 2nd of December as long-standing friends. But let me say this, friends don't lie. Friends don't lie, neither do they flatter. So, Mr. Speaker, in essence, the minister friends have labeled him an utter failure for failing 58% of the Guyanese people who lives in poverty. By moving towards, Mr. Speaker, natural resources, which they've given me the opportunity to look at. So, Mr. Speaker, let me say this. The state of the sector and what has been done with the promises made. Significantly, mining is part of the non-oil sector and contributes significantly to that. But let me just say what that have done for those regions What we are doing in this opposition is to ensure that those regions are well represented and given their fair share. So let me remind this House, Mr. Speaker, that those primary regions of 1, 7, 8, 9, and 10, these regions that provide, supply national economy, but remain structurally and socially underdeveloped. Let us be clear, non-oil extractive sector did not disappear. It went because of neglect by this government, Mr. Speaker. And what we have is almost 2/3 of this landmass, with over 25% of its population, cannot see the benefits of the extractive sector. But let me remind what goal within that extractive sector looked like in 2011 to 2015. With a constant target being set of 500,000 ounces, Mr. Speaker, we've never hit that target. So the aim maybe need to change. Somebody firing blanks, Mr. Speaker. But let me say outside of the blanks they're firing, because the APNUAFC government came in 2015, and in 2016 to 2020, we had an average gold price of a gold declaration of over 500,000 ounces, Mr. Speaker. We also in that period hit almost 700 or over 1,000 ounces of gold. Can you imagine that? But let me tell you what the contrast is about gold. You had the peak period of gold. You had the peak period of gold within that 5-year period. That's the price. It was a heavy price. And we couldn't meet the demand with supply. But when the coalition came in, we rose the declaration to almost 700 or over 700,000 ounces. But let me say what happened when the coalition left. When we left, we have never found a 500,000 ounce target that today the ministers revised that target to see if we can hit again in 2026. And we have never had the price of gold that we have now at almost $5,000 an ounce, Mr. Speaker. So we have a demand once again, but we cannot meet the supply. And this is the legacy of this government in regards to gold. But let me talk about gas, Mr. Speaker. It was this government in the oil sector. When we signed that contract, I had a lot to say. Remember the talk about making the contract available? This government is yet to make one of those mining contracts available to this house and to this nation the way they asked the APNU to make available the oil contract. We call on this government now to make those contracts available so the Guyanese people can scrutinize it the same way we were able to scrutinize the Exxon contract. But let me say this to you, again in the natural resource, we talking forestry, I got enough time. But timber, Mr. Speaker, these communities where the extraction of timber takes place, Mr. Speaker, these hinterland regions daily, the roads serve as extraction, not for residents. Value-added processing is minimal, and communities remain poor, forests are depleted, and people are not developed. I went to Kokwani a couple weeks ago, Ichuni. The minister took the time the week before to go there. 4 matters to address. Concessions the people want close to the communities, not addressed properly. We giving it to the big companies. They ask about tags, can't get the tags so that they can produce properly. They ask about ensuring the road to Linden to Ichuni is done. Can't be done properly to date. People are suffering. But what is the biggest indictment of that visit, Mr. Speaker? What was said to those loggers in 2020 is that a 900 million fund is available for loggers to access. And to date, Mr. Speaker, not a single logging association or small man, which is there claiming to put in people first, benefited from that $900 million, a promise made in 2020 to our small loggers. 11 of them got that money, and none of them in small. That is it. You know what's the promise made to those loggers now? It is said to them that some merchant bank coming. You don't get when that bank come again. Let me hope so. But let me say this about sand and quarry. Because in those communities where we see the extraction of sand and quarry, Although critical to the construction boom, the region providing these materials lacked the durable infrastructure, received no structural reinvestment, and suffer many environmental degradation. Just check the Linden Suzdike Highway. You always drive them every day. Check it out. We see bauxite in this government's claim as doing quite well for the extractive sector. Both sides. We hear about Russell coming back on stream. But the only boast of this government is jobs. That cannot be the only boast. Not when Russell, after leaving here and leaving 400 of our Lindeners, Region 10 residents and Guyanese to suffer, we are bringing them back with no assurances, Mr. Speaker. That is what this House and this country would like to know. As much as we see the development and success in these minerals, just like we see bauxite is given 0.5 last year and 0.5 this year, after making exceptional profits, we are saying it cannot be only about jobs, but ensuring workers and Guyanese are taken care of better in this country, Mr. Speaker. But I'm coming outside of the extractive sector because Region 10 itself is an extractive hub. And what you see when you see in Region 10, it stands as a clearest distinction of an indictment of this government's approach to a people-centered economy. One of Guyana's most richest resource region and one of its most neglected governance in the region. Of 10 regions, this is the only region had no input into this budget by having a sitting Democratic Council to do so. That in itself, Mr. Speaker, shows the sort of neglect and takes away that Article 13, the right to be involved in the decision-making process. So we ask, Mr. Speaker, who really made the input into this 1.55 trillion budget on behalf of the people of Region 10? That in itself is what the people must know, and that is why they must know they got absolutely nothing except 6 new roads budget for them in budget 2026. But Mr. Speaker, outside of the fiction of the governance and ensuring that the decision-making process work in the interest of the people, they must say to us what Linden is with regards. It was Barrett Jagdeo, the Honorable, who said the administrators within these NDCs, the administrators who are REOs, the administrators who are clerks of councils, must behave as though they're servants and not lord over the people. Well, Mr. Speaker, that aspect of governance is certainly a failure when it comes to Linden and Region 10, more so the municipality. But it was the Honorable Bishop Edgell who boasted about the budget engagement. What engagement that would have set him that the NDIA office needs to be set up? It would have found itself in this budget. Never consulted the primary school for Wizrock, never consulted drains before roads are constructed, never consulted the shade house, never ensured that that shade house worked to provide food for the people of Linden and Region 10, Mr. Speaker. So we are saying to you, Mr. Speaker, that is what we see for Linden. But Linden is more than Region. Region 10 is more than Linden. And I can tell you about Ichunin Kokwani. It was the Minister of Public Works who went and put down a brand new airstrip over 60-year-old rotted pipe, Mr. Speaker. It means in a few months we got dig the airstrip up, Minister. Nobody show you that. Nobody tell you that the NDC chairs that she pointed out to your engineers and y'all still build the airstrip over a derelict pipe. But let me say this, Mr. Speaker.
We know. It's a nice speech. As you pause, honorable member, we can take the extension for you to conclude.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, I move for the honorable member to be given 5 minutes to complete his presentation.
Well, let me say this, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Comrade Ganesh. You know, I remember we spoke about these communities, Region 10. Region 10 with all of its extraction. Region 10 with all of its extraction, Mr. Speaker. Let me say this. These regions represent, as I mentioned, over 75% of the landmass of this country. They're not by accident of the geography. In the absence of a binding social contract with these communities, between the extraction and the people who live there, those extractive communities, we are saying, with high extraction and low reinvestment, weak services and limited autonomy, these regions demand a new social contract with revenue sharing tied to the extraction, infrastructure, and proportional to the output and environmental accountability. Human development and benchmark, national development, cannot be accidental. It must be reciprocal. Mr. Speaker, other mining jurisdictions around the world, this is not nothing new. Canada, Australia, where communities that have mining industries have a contract where they benefit directly, and it's not new because our Amerindian brothers and sisters already have that sort of benefit when it comes to that. So for region 1, 7, 8, 9, and 10, this means legal recognition of community engagement tied to mining permit, setting local employment quota, training, procurement target, community funds, and ensuring that mining go back into the community in a tangible way. But let me say this, Mr. Speaker. I want to get quickly to the issue of our public servants, because you know the point of the issue is Epstein, listen, Epstein, there's some who would make him look like child's play, no pun intended. No pun intended. And let me say this, no pun intended. Epstein, listen carefully. There's some who would make him look like child's play. But let me say this further, Mr. Speaker. No pun intended. Let me say this. What about taking taxpayers' money without their permission to ensure that they acquire land, erect buildings in parts of Guyana without the intent of giving the proper property back to these people? That is also what we call taking without permission. The resources are not there for their personal taking. It's not for your personal taking. It's for the benefit of the Guyanese people. But several examples of this behavior are on display, yet the minister have the temerity to come and tell this house that the government of which he's a part of is fighting corruption. He is saying that anti-corruption is in his budget speech. Now we must ask, the evidence exists that the police are already shooting children who they see taken without permission. We got people who corruption allegations have been leveled to. The minister said they're an anti-corruption unit being put in place soon.
The third time you use corruption would not be permitted. So we'll strike that one.
I was responding to the anti-corruption. I withdraw that, Mr. Speaker. So guided to the anti-corruption mentioned in the budget. The truth, Mr. Speaker, that putting people first, Mr. Speaker, people-centered budget would share the extraction benefit, respect constitutional participation, strengthen institutions, deliver justice, and transform those regions where extraction, including Region 10, is dominant. Budget 2026 does none of that. Instead, it prioritizes family, friends, and favorites, while leaving 58% of the population in poverty to live on $1,200 a day, and 38% in extreme poverty to live on $650 a day. Again, Mr. Speaker, this is not dignity. Neither is it considered progress. It definitely is not a budget for the people. It is a budget for power. That is why it must be opposed in its current form, firmly and without apology. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, not until the potholes become a hospital bill and blackouts become a silent ICU, bridges trembles, and budget speech echo are too late. Not until bad decisions come knocking on kitchen doors, and not until it comes sitting, sipping a cup of tea, not until the investment failures turn into lost jobs and lost time, lost breath. Not until people realize in this country that policies are not paper number, they're neutral, they're meant to serve the people. And only then will they see that danger is not coming, it is already here with this so-called people center putting people first budget. We are not divided by parties in this country. We're united by the consequences that this government and its reckless actions have before us. We do not confront these choices now. We will be in a situation where we will fight for our survival in this country. That is the reality of Budget 2026. All those fancy numbers cannot align with the policies when you're saying that institutions will investigate. Who is investigating the Sioux claim? Who is investigating the many murders? Who is dealing with the justice for Jamal Jones in Linden? Who is dealing with the justice for Keon Fujine in Linden? Those independent institutions you speak of will not be independent to function unless they deliver justice to the Guyanese people. That is the fact of the matter, Mr. Speaker. So I want this government to know that putting people first means more than ensuring we got fancy numbers. It is ensuring that people benefit, not family, friends, and favorites, not those who we feel close to the power to ensure that they are given contracts. And I can ask the Honorable Minister Edgell, he knows what is happening in Linden. I am not the one who said it. Ask the many supporters of the government who took to social media live in their hundreds to denounce the minister and his behavior in Linden. Not me. Not me. They were loyalists. I ain't gonna call a name because I respect their decision, because they were correct. They were making a judgment not only on him, but the entire government, because they would know better. As they say, he who feels it knows it, and they felt it more than anyone else. So the minister can smile, but the minister knew exactly what they meant with those many allegations. But let me say this to this House, Mr. Speaker. Let me say this as I conclude. As I conclude. So somebody asked me about my ring. As I conclude, I can show a new ring. I hope somebody don't show me an old worn out ring.
Honorable member, you have to conclude. You're now 3 minutes over.
So let me thank this House for accommodating this presentation and to say that putting people first requires more than fancy number and loud mouth. It requires the work that was done, for example, we saw with the APNU in the gold sector to raise it from those missed targets to over 700,000 ounces. Thank you very much.